Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. Hope your week is going well. For you, your family, your friends, everyone is staying strong and healthy in your world right now. And you know, we are actually right now hitting another one of those fun seasons of the year. And no, it's not the best, but it's good because we actually will have some things to watch in the world of sports over the next few weeks. Of course, over the weekend, we saw Rory McIlroy finally win the Masters. No, it wasn't easy. It wasn't always pretty. I mean, it started slow. It kind of ended slow. Somehow he still managed to win, but that long, elusive Grand Slam title is now his. Pretty fun to watch on Sunday or over the weekend. And now we have the NBA playoffs getting underway. The Stanley Cup playoffs are getting ready to get started. The NFL draft is going to be here later this month. I mean, the Indy 500 is coming. The Kentucky Derby is coming. Get ready for a month or two of really, really fun stuff. And then we're going to hit that long, boring summer of just nothing but baseball and falling asleep in front of the TV as you drop Cheetos in your lap and have an orange beard around your mouth. But hey, right now, yeah, we're getting into another fun time of year. Speaking of those Stanley Cup playoffs, we're actually going to be talking a little bit of hockey today. I know we don't do it a lot, but we're going to be joined today by a very special guest, and we're going to discuss a number of things. In fact, we have so much to get to today, we need to jump into that right now. Joining us this week on the Daily Dose, I have got a guest that I'm looking forward to talking to because he's got some really interesting things to talk about here. I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly. Dr. Sammy Vogel-Seidenberg, did I get that right?
That was perfect. Wow, that was
excellent.
Really good.
All right. Well, Dr. Sammy is a professor and faculty athletic representative at Dominican University in California, where he has spent years getting this next generation of athletes and sports leaders ready for whatever they're going to do in life. He's also a former NCAA head lacrosse coach and an assistant athletic director. He's got a big background in coaching, recruiting, sports administration. You know, I love that kind of stuff. But here's the stuff that really sets him apart that I can't wait to talk to him about. Because Dr. Vogel-Seidenberg recently completed his PhD in sports leadership with his dissertation titled The Role of Physicality in Professional Hockey. He examines the impact of fighting and hitting on gameplay, team dynamics, and success. Yes, I can't wait to break this down. If you've ever wondered how physical play influences how a team is playing, whether fighting still should be in the game today, yeah, we're going to drill down on all this. Dr. Sammy, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today on the Daily Dose.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about it. Thanks for the kind introduction. And yeah, looking forward to talking about the dissertation and all the other stuff. It's definitely been a wild ride for sure.
You've got some really, really interesting, things to talk about here. First off, yeah. I want to get into this. Where did you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the East Coast. I grew up in New Jersey. I was out there for about 14 years. And then in high school, family up and moved to Southern California. So changing lifestyles a little bit down, going from wintry cold New Jersey to sunny, warm Southern California. So I was out there for a while, and then, went to university up in Northern California and bounced around a bit with different jobs and careers. I was in Canada playing hockey a little bit. I was down in Southern California in the film industry for a little while, and then went into coaching and was in Pittsburgh and in Idaho before I ended up here in Northern California at Dominican. So
where in Southern California were you? Where did you go to high school?
I went to Westlake High School in Westlake Village. It's right, like if most people know Thousand Oaks.
Yep.
That tends to be the more popular area.
Okay, I got you. What sports did you grow up playing? Did you play everything like a lot of us did, or were you kind of a hockey lacrosse guy, or did you kind of play anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, hockey was my first sport. I started playing hockey when I was 3. That was kind of like the big passion for me, and I played pretty much everything else. Hockey and lacrosse ended up being like the final 2 that I did throughout, middle school, high school, and college. But I did, soccer and basketball and baseball. And I was big into the extreme sports as well. I was a skateboarder, snowboarder, surfer, all that stuff. But I never did football. That was one sport I didn't do. I did wrestling. I kind of tried it all. But if it ever started to conflict with hockey or lacrosse, it had to go. So I did cross country and track and field in high school. So I mean, I've done pretty much most sports except for football.
As a hockey player, and I know we're going to talk kind of anything, but as a hockey player, what kind of player were you? What position are you playing? What were you on the ice?
Yeah, for sure. So I started off playing offense. I was a left wing center. I ended up stopping and playing goalie for a couple of years, and then won a championship with my youth team, and then was like, all right, I did my job. Now I'm going to go back to playing out. So I went back to playing left wing and center. And so I did that for the rest of my career. I'm not the biggest guy. I'm 5'9", so I'm not super tall, and I don't necessarily have the hockey build, but I was a grinder. I was a grit and grind kind of guy. I got in a lot of fights. I was the guy scoring a couple, I didn't score a ton of goals. I got a lot of assists. I got a lot of those grind, banging in the front of the net type of goals, being in the right place, that kind of stuff, more so than the finesse or flash guys that you see today.
Well, then it's no wonder that you kind of went the direction you went with, the physicality in hockey and that kind of thing, because that was kind of the way you played. How did you go from playing and then kind of transitioning over into that coaching side?
Yeah. So my senior year of college, I was playing both sports, and I finished my hockey season, started my lacrosse season, and I ended up blowing out my knee. And when that happened, it kind of was like, that was it for my lacrosse season. I couldn't finish out. And I actually started coaching the women's lacrosse team at my school. They needed a coach. And so I was like, sure, I'll help out. And that was kind of my first intro into coaching. And then I ended up working in the film industry and doing that. And I was miserable. It was rough. Like it was a lot of work. It was hard, 2 years of that. And I was ready to move on to something else. I was coaching a high school team. I had a lot of success, and somebody took a chance on me. I got a job coaching on the East Coast at a college called Washington Jefferson College. It's a D3 school. And, did that for a little bit, and then ended up getting the head coaching job at the University of Idaho, and was able to turn that program into a perennial 2-3 win program, not making playoffs. To first year we went 7-7, didn't make playoffs. Second year we had our first winning season in program history, made it to the PNCL finals, lost in the finals. So, was able to turn that program around, and then got the job at Dominican. And, it was coming into a really interesting situation. They were a program that didn't have a lot. They were D2, and then we got moved to club. But the university was still running it as an NCAA program, with you had to follow all the rules and do all those things. And so my goal was always to get us back to the NCAA. So in my 9 years there, I was able to build the team up to being pretty successful, to adding a women's lacrosse team and being the first NCAA D2 women's lacrosse team in California, and then getting the team back to Division II as of last year. So it's been a ride for sure.
No doubt. Holy cow. That's quite a road you took to get there. I've got to ask this, and I always ask coaches this.
Sure.
You played, you went through that, you transitioned over to coaching. I usually get one or two sides. Either you had a coach that you were like, no, that was a mentor, that was someone who changed my life, or I never had that and I wanted to go find my way. Did you have a coach that impacted you, that kind of made you want to go into coaching?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I definitely had some not great coaches growing up, and I definitely knew what I needed in a coach. And I had a college coach that I owe everything to. I mean, his name's Tony Savaggio. Took a ragtag program at where I went to college at Humboldt, And basically we were like, we need a coach, come in, help us build this thing back up. And he put his blood, sweat, and tears into it. He really cared about his players. He's a players coach. Like, you see him 10 years later and he's giving you the biggest hug of your life, that kind of guy. And, just amazing man who, helped me really understand like what a coach should be, and building that type of relationship. And so for me, I don't necessarily know if that's why the reason I got into coaching, but it was definitely a big part of like who I am as a coach and relationship building. And I always have loved sports, and I think that was just a part of my life. And I felt like I wanted to do a career in it, and coaching made sense to me. I feel like I want to learn. I want to study and learn a lot. And then, I love, leading young men. I mean, I think, the ability to be a leader and help these kids not just become, better athletes, but more importantly, better people. And that's always been what I've done as a coach is focused on, hey, I want them to be better people and better young men than when I got them. And that's more important than wins and losses in my mind.
Absolutely. Because, at the end of the day, you're giving them lessons for life. And I know that's cliche. And I know, people say that, but you really are. How many times do you go back even now and think back to something your coach taught you, maybe in middle school even, and you're going, I still follow that every single day. Yeah. That's what a good coach should do.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games, all for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, just a quick reminder, make sure you're stopping by DailyDoseSports.com each and every week. You can see new articles there. You can get links to the podcast or the video over there. And you can get some Daily Dose gear. You need a new t-shirt. You need a new hoodie. You need a new sweatshirt. Make sure you're swinging by DailyDoseSports.com and checking out what we have going over there every single week. Now let's get back to our discussion with Dr. Samuel Vogel Seidenberg. Okay, we've got to drill down on this, though.
Yeah.
Because you have a very unique outlook on the role of physicality. Now, I will say from my perspective, I was a high school basketball coach. I coached guys and I coached girls. We always said the more physical team is going to win. That's just how it is. People might not like that. That might offend some people that don't like that. Hey, most physical team wins. If you can do it within the rules of the game, most physical team wins. How do you view physicality, especially in the world of hockey, where physicality to me is huge? You go see that hit stat up there and you go, no, I can probably tell at least an idea who's winning this game.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so important. And that was really what I wanted to prove with my dissertation. And, whenever you're going into this type of research, you really have to come into it with like no opinion, right? Like that's what they tell you. Come in with no opinion and you'll see what happens. But of course, like I'm going to be biased a little bit because of my background and all that stuff. So it's hard to not have opinion, but I tried to do as much research as I could into what research has been done in the past. And what I was able to find is that most of the research done in the past on physicality and fighting and hitting in hockey was all statistical based. So they're strictly looking at the statistics and how it affects the game. And what's been found is that it actually doesn't help at all. And it almost hurts it because, you're taking penalties and there's all these things that go into that. That's what the statistics say. But at the end of the day, the statistics is only one piece of it. And when you're talking about something that impacts mentally and physically, you can't just look at statistics. So
you're right.
That was really where I was coming from and where the direction kind of went. And maybe I didn't necessarily expect it to go that way was more of the mental aspect of the fighting and hitting and what it can do in different situations. So, I mean, I think it's super important. I think if it's done correctly, right. And like you said, there's a piece of it when it comes to by the rules of the game. But I think even more than that, it's the sense of, being able to do it in a way that makes sense, right? When we talk about fighting in hockey, there are two different styles of fighting, right? There's the stage fight and then there's the organic fight, the thing that just kind of happens, right? And the stage fight is not influential at all. It doesn't help. It doesn't do anything, right?
Agreed.
But the
as
organic
Colorado
fight,
Avalanche fans, we agree with you.
Right, exactly. But the organic fight is what really makes a difference. And it's the same thing with hitting, right? And because they're trying to limit those things, it's honestly made the sport more dangerous at times. And that was another piece that came through in the research as well, which was pretty interesting.
That is interesting. I'm going to ask you right now. Can you drill down on that? Why is it more
Yeah.
dangerous when you don't have it?
Right, totally. So when you look at it from the perspective of, fighting, let's look at that first off, right? So, with the QMJHL just banned fighting, right? So there's no fighting in the QMJHL anymore, and you have a ton of players who come from that league. That's one of the biggest feeder leagues to the NHL, right? You're not going to also be able to fight at the U.S. Hockey Development League, right? And so what's happening is, these players are coming into the league and they're not prepared for that type of physicality, and they're going to get in a fight in the NHL. It's going to happen, right? Whether you're a superstar or not. Look at Macklin Celebrini from the Sharks. That guy is a grit and grinder, but he's also one of the best scorers so far for the Sharks as a rookie, right?
Sure.
And, but you look at a guy like Bedard, who has no physical sense, doesn't understand the physical game, and he is struggling. He is struggling, and he doesn't want to get hit, right?
No.
And that makes a difference. And so when the fighting side of things, look, certain people fight, certain people don't. But when you don't have enforcers, everybody's going to have to fight at some point, right? You've taken out the enforcer role from the game. Yeah. It's gone. Ryan Reeves is in the AHL. There's no more enforcers in the NHL, right? The true role of it.
Sure.
So everybody has to fight now. Right. And so you're going to have guys who don't know what they're doing, and they're going to get hurt. You look at Matt Rempe, who was huge last year, a sensation in the NHL, and people love him. But look at his face after a couple weeks of fighting. It was brutal because he had no idea what he was doing. Right. And so that almost makes it more dangerous. And then in the hitting aspect, when you know that if I turn my back and I get hit, I get this guy out of the game. Right. If Connor McDavid is coming at me and I turn my back, I get Connor McDavid out of the game. Sure. So a coach isn't going to tell a player to do that, but it's one of those situations where it makes it more dangerous because these players are saying, well, if I can get somebody out of the game for an illegal hit, I'm going to do it. Right. And then if they're not being hit in game at the younger ages, they don't know how to take a hit. And if you don't know how to take a hit, that's when injuries happen. And you see more and more superstars getting injured and being out for long periods of time during season because they're getting hit and they don't know how to get hit. Right. So I think that's one of the biggest issues here is when it comes to the way the league is approaching these things is, is taking it out better or worse, right? Is not preparing these players to be able to play at, when the guys are able to skate almost 30, 40 miles per hour on the ice, and then they get hit and they don't know how to take that hit. Yeah. It's really, really dangerous. And I agree with taking out hits to the head, like 100%,
of course.
100%. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and to be fair, going back, the hits to the head, maybe they weren't frowned on like they are now, but even then you were like, hey, you went high. That's kind of dirty. So I think that's always kind of been the case. Obviously, with the way you view this, you look at the NHL, it still needs fighting, doesn't it? It still needs that 100%. Physicality. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know they're kind of trying to sweep that away, but you can't.
Yeah, no, you definitely can. And that's really what came through in this research, right? So I was able to interview 4 ex-NHL players, which was awesome. And then I was able to get questionnaires from 10 current NHL players. And not one of those players said that they believe that fighting should be removed from the game. Sure. And not one of them believed that hitting should be removed from the game. They all did agree that there was a sense of that it's okay for these things to the rules are okay, right? Like the new rules and stuff are okay, as long as we're not like taking it out and making sure that these players are prepared when they get to this level. And I think that was a big piece, as well as the other thing that came up kind of organically and from the interviews and from the questionnaires was the idea of intimidation. That was a huge piece for me when it came to this research. I really wanted to hit on intimidation, and I didn't even have to ask questions on it. They brought it up on their own. And so for me, that was a big piece and a big eye opener that intimidation as a psychological tool in hockey is even more important than the actual fighting or hitting. Knowing that you're playing a more physical team makes you play differently. Makes you grip your stick, right? Knowing that you're have to deal with a fight or somebody who's going to fight in a game makes you play differently. And in that and there were guys who were talking about that. They were like, I was a goon. I didn't even have to fight. I would just talk. I would just walk by the locker room and be like, I'm coming for you. And that was enough for them to
Done.
grip their stick and make that mistake, right? You see those guys make, like, defensive players got his stick in the corner and he sees someone coming full speed from behind him and he throws it. And it's like, what is he doing? He's afraid that he's about to get lit up, right?
Yep.
And so, that was a big piece as well.
So you discussed a little bit about the psychological effects of that physicality of knowing. What about the guys that's bringing the hit? What about how's the what are the psychological effects of the guy? Hey, I am kind of the enforcer. I am going to come out and light you up.
Yeah, totally. No. And the big, talking to those guys, like, it's always fun, right? Because like they just have such a perspective on the game that you don't even think about. Like, I had one guy I talked to who went off on a little tangent about the equipment. He's like, the equipment's too big. Like, we need it to be smaller, because if I'm hitting somebody with a Kevlar elbow cap to the head, of course he's going to get knocked out. But if I was hitting him with a little soft leather pad like I was used to, he's not going to get knocked out. So I was just like, that's awesome. I love that.
He's not wrong. I've always said,
wrong.
If you want to eliminate the head hits in the NFL, make those helmets leather again, and they'll stop hitting with their head.
Right. Totally.
You could do it.
Totally. Yeah. No. And so, I mean, I love that idea of like equipment being an issue, right? So that was one of the things that came up. And then I think too, from them, for their perspective, like, they understand that the enforcer role has just changed now. Like, you have guys out there who can play hockey and can still fight, Garnet Hathaway on the Flyers. And, there's a couple guys on the Blue Jackets who play that way, things like that, even, they can play hockey and they're good at hockey and they're fast, but they still can play the physical side. You need that. Every team has it. Every team needs it. Every team wants it. Right. And one of the things that they really mentioned was, everybody wants the Tom Wilson, right? Everybody wants the Tom Wilson and the Brad Marchand and the Matthew Tkachuk and the Brady Tkachuk. They want those guys. Like, of course. Yes, everybody would love to have a McDavid, but a McDavid is, McDavid and a Draisaitl and a McKinnon and a McCarr. Like, those are once in generation players, right? Yeah. The guys who can make more of an impact, like, we look at these little skilled guys and it's like, cool, this is great. But like, I would rather have a guy who can grind and muck it up in the corners, but who can also score goals. Like, if you're telling me I had the choice, between Matthew Tkachuk and Tom Wilson over, Artemi Panarin or like Fabian Zetterlund or, anybody like that, I would take those guys any day. Like, I would rather have Matthew Tkachuk. I'm a Rangers fan. I would rather have Matthew Tkachuk than Artemi Panarin. I love Artemi Panarin.
Yes.
But Artemi Panarin in the playoffs can't perform. Yeah. Matthew Tkachuk can't. Right. And you see it with teams like Carolina, right? That was a big one that everybody talked about, is like, this is a team full of like mediocre players with nobody with grit and grind. And it's all kind of skill based. Yep. You just can't win that way.
And
look at the last few cup winners. It's all physical teams and guys who can grind.
It is Ryan here. And I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You talked a little bit about this already, but in your research, enforcers have transitioned now to guys that can skate. Are we ever going to have enforcers again? I look at football and say, you remember the big hitting safety? Yeah, those don't exist anymore. That's a dinosaur. Are the enforcers dinosaurs now? Have they changed so much they're unrecognizable?
Yeah, I think it's more of what you just said there. It's that they've changed so much that it's almost unrecognizable, right? Like, Ryan Reeves was kind of the last of them. Like, there's other guys who Foligno is a grit and grind kind of guy. Matthew Tkachuk and Brady are never going to say no to throwing the gloves down, but Tom Wilson doesn't really fight that much anymore, but he's known as that guy. Pat Maroon's about to retire. So, you got a couple other guys who kind of can play that way, but they're also relying on them to score goals. So it's like, they're more of the Bob Probert type, right? And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot more Bob Probert than we are Ty Domi and Ryan Reeves and Derek Bugard and those guys. Like, we're going to see a lot more of the guy who can put up 20, 30 goals a season, but can also, punch somebody's lights out, right? or you're going to see fourth line guys like Matt Rempe and Barclay Goodrow and those kind of guys who, will muck it up and will grit and grind, and will not score a lot of goals, but they got to be able to skate and they got to be able to keep up with the pace. And I got to be able to put my fourth line out against the first line and they can still succeed. Right. So the enforcer role, I think it's just changed. It's not necessarily that it's gone. It's gone. It's changed with the times. Yeah. It's a faster, more skill-based game. And because of that, you need to have physicality, but you need to have it in the right way that can fit into what the game is now. Right. But, I hope that role never goes away. It gave so many guys a chance to play in the league that probably never would have had a chance to play in the league. And I think that's one thing that's really cool about the NHL. So I hope it doesn't go away completely. But I think as long as you have superstars, you're going to have somebody to protect them.
No, you are. I've got to ask this. It's completely subjective. This is typical dumb sports talk stuff.
Okay. All right.
Pound for pound, who's your guy? Who's your fighter? Who's the guy? If you get one fighter to put on your team all time.
Oh, man.
I know. Who are you taking?
Yeah, that's a tough one. God,
because you do have to kind of consider, well, I don't want him to just be a goon. Like, can he bring anything? Right. And yet
I mean, are you talking like modern times or just any time period?
Anytime. You can
anytime.
Take yeah.
Bob Probert.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, scariest guy on the ice, 100%. Like nobody wanted to fight him. Yeah. He ran the league for years and he also won games and scored goals and was an incredible player. I mean, I would say Bob Probert. It's just no question. I mean, if I just want somebody to go out there and, beat the living crap out of somebody, Derek Bugard. Yeah, the boogeyman for sure. Sean Avery's another one too.
Avery, you can go Tony Twist or somebody like that. Yeah, some
but Bob Probert.
Okay, I got you. I completely understand. Okay, here in Denver, got a pretty good hockey program going. University of Denver. You're a college guy. What are the key differences between coaching at that collegiate level as opposed to the NHL?
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest thing is, again, they're adults. Like, where in college you're really coaching, you're coaching them when they're still teenagers, right? You get them at 18 and especially in hockey, you get them maybe 18, 19, and then they're in the show, right? So like, you don't necessarily get to work with them in their 20s. And so you're really trying to mold them and help them, grow as young men, especially when they're possibly going to go to the show right away out of college after maybe a year or two. You want to get them prepped as possible to be able to handle what's coming at them, right? And that's why you see a lot of these teams now taking these 18, 19-year-olds and having them stay with former players. You see it here in San Jose. Like I see it all the time. Celebrini's living with Thornton and Will Smith is living with Marlowe. It's like, that's the best education you're ever going to get right there to play in the NHL. Right. And so, but I think the biggest difference is, again, they're professionals. I mean, these are people that have families, they're adults, like they make their own decisions. So it's really hard to be, you see it. There are some coaches who are truly player coaches that have a lot of success in the professional league, but you need in the professional level, it's hard to be that player's coach, right? Because again, they've got agents, they've got contracts, they've got money, they've got families. Like, so where is the, like where in college, like it's just you, like you're their parent. There's nobody else there. Right. Like, so it's very different in that sense. It's a lot more rah than it is like, X's and O's, which is, I always say in my job as a coach, coaching was maybe 5-10% of my job. Right. There was a lot more that went into it than that. I mean, the rest of it is administration and mental health and all that. There's all that. If you could
just do the coaching part of it, if you could just do that, that's the best job in the world. It's the other stuff that wears on you. It's the other stuff that kills you for sure. Yeah, that's the fun part. Yeah. When you're looking at college hockey, the travel, the time on the road, the time that you got, how are you staying on top of academics and that kind of, how are you balancing that? It's not like a football game you play on Saturday and that's it. You guys are traveling, you're playing multiple times a week. How do you balance that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good question, especially in my role now. Right. So, because I'm a faculty athletic rep now, so my sole job is to make sure that our students are succeeding in the classroom. Our student athletes are succeeding in the classroom. So, I think it really depends on the university. I think the biggest thing that you have to have is a supportive faculty. you have to have a good relationship between athletics and faculty because, they are leaving a lot. I mean, for example, we in my university, we have a conference where we play in Hawaii. So they're gone for 2 weeks at a time to go to Hawaii and play games.
Sure.
They're gone, our golf teams, they miss Monday and Tuesday almost every week for golf because they're traveling for tournaments. Like, it's just the way it is. So, for us, we proctor exams on the road or at back at the campus after they come back. I really push our students to get their work done before they leave. Be ahead of the game, don't fall behind. And usually, we've won our conference academic award. I think it's 11 of the last 14 years.
Oh, wow.
So we've really done. The guy who was in my role before me, his name, shout out to Dr. Leeds. He was amazing at his job. He was one of the best VARs and one of the best people. And he did a great job of really setting the culture of like, you need to communicate with your professors. You need to make sure you're catching up and staying up on all your work. You need to make sure that, if you're missing, you're doing it all. And, and we've seen that the students who succeed do all that. The ones who struggle, they don't. And it's hard. I mean, a lot of these teams are traveling all the time and they're gone for long periods, long stretches. But, you really just have to make sure that the coaches are following through on the academics as much as the players, right? Sure. Are you doing study hall on the road? Are you getting all that work done? It's just so imperative.
I've got to ask. I wasn't prepared to ask this question. What in the world is the ice like in Hawaii? How in the world is that just slush? That's got to be the slowest ice you've been on.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. But if you close the doors tight enough and you make it cold enough, any ice will be all right.
It'll work.
You are. Yeah,
It'll
I'm
work.
in California. I know. Like hot days,
you're right.
The
right.
ice is going to be brutal.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, the driver's going to get his gas mileage in that night because he's got a lot of work to scrape off. Yeah. And I know that, and you know this, we probably depend on it too much, but with all of your research and all the things you've done, let alone playing and coaching, and you're immersed in it. I know that we like to follow his analytics. I know that so many times we're probably too wrapped up. What do they say about the physical play? What do the analytics actually say?
That's definitely a big piece that I did a lot. So like in the section of the dissertation, you always do a literature review. So I talked a lot about that in the literature review where, the statistics say that the physicality, the hitting is important. Like, they recognize that hitting is important. Okay. But again, as long as you're doing it legally and in the right way, it's good. As soon as it's an illegal hit, it's so detrimental to the point where you tend to lose games because of it, right? I'll say that part of my research was I watched games. So I watched and actually tracked 4 games, but I of course watch more than that. And what I noticed is that the team that was more physical and the team that had the fight won the game in all 3 instances of the games that I watched. And it specifically won the fight, not necessarily started the fight, but won the fight. Because there were a couple of times where the other team started the fight, but the other team won the fight and they won the game. And so that was interesting to me as well to actually see that. Sure. Because there's no real statistics out there that say like you win the fight, you win the game, because nobody says who wins or loses other than like the fans, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, statistically wise, they say that fighting is detrimental because, you have somebody in the box for 5 minutes. And especially now with the instigator rule is you could also add a 2-minute penalty on top of it. So they say that it's not effective in that sense. Everybody agrees that physicality is effective in the playoffs. But fighting is not effective during the season, right? Statistically, right? Speaking, but it's wrong, right? It's completely wrong because you don't see a ton of instigator penalties because they all know now that they can't do that, right? Yeah. And again, it's more about the psychological aspect that happens, the cohesion, the team. You see somebody fight. What did all the players do? They always go to commercial break, but if you look at a game, they stand up and they hit the boards, right? They get out of the box, they do the same thing. You take that out of the game, where are you building it?
And that's exactly what I was going to ask you is they can say it's detrimental on is it detrimental in the locker room? Because a lot of times that locker room is going to kind of dictate how that next game goes.
Right.
It's not detrimental in that locker room. Sometimes a lot of guys are looking around saying, no, you got my back. Let's go. Like,
right.
And so
I think it's more detrimental if you're not doing it and you go to the locker room and some guy just got his face punched in and nobody backed him up. You know, how do you think that's going to go? Right.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one final question, and I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for joining us on the Dose. I'll be honest, we don't talk a ton of hockey. Obviously, we're getting to that season. We go hit the major sports, but I love having an expert come in and explain these things to us. So I'm going to ask you a very pointed question. There are no wrong answers.
Okay.
Who's winning the Stanley Cup this year?
Ooh. Okay. All right. That's a great question. I'm not going to say Winnipeg because I don't think they can do it. I just think they're going to fall apart in the playoffs again, like they do every year.
Like always.
I just Hellebuck. I don't trust them in the playoffs.
You have a reason to.
No, right. I think it's going to be either. I think Colorado is scary. I think Colorado is really scary. Yeah,
they can be. They have tweaked that roster so much that they are now. It's been a weird road, but they are now.
Right. I'm really worried about Florida's health. So I just don't think they can. I don't think they're going to sustain. I really like Dallas, to be honest.
How can you
really like Dallas. Like, I think they're built for the playoffs. Like, I know they've struggled a little bit down the stretch here. Ottinger is the definitely biggest question mark going into the playoffs. But man, from their first to their fourth line, they are absolutely stacked. Like, so I'm going to go Dallas. We're just going to go with it. We're going Dallas. I don't think the East will. I don't think the East is going to win. The East is horrible this year.
Well, and it's so funny because you just look at straight at the records and you're like, oh, Capitals, and then you're like, they're not. No, not once you face the West.
Sorry.
The West is just so loaded. It's so deep. Even a St. Louis, someone like that, you get a hot goalie, you get a team that's just getting production out of those deep lines, and you're like, the West just looks too deep and too stacked.
100%.
The scary part to me is that Colorado's probably gonna have to face Dallas in the first round, and
I know. I saw that.
Mika's gonna light us up, and I just am gonna I'm gonna sob every time he scores. But
oh man, and I think with Washington, like with Ovi getting the goal record, I think a lot of the season had to do with that. They were rallying behind that.
For sure.
Now that it's over, now that it's over,
you're right.
They're gonna go right back down to earth. Like I don't see them sustaining.
Well, they had such a lead; they had nothing to play for except for that. And that's all they've been playing for. Well, now the real season starts.
Right. Exactly.
Now it gets serious. Now it's playtime is over. So, well, Dr. Sammy, I want to thank you. I want to ask you, is there anywhere that people can follow your work? Is there anywhere that they can keep up with, your thoughts on what you have going on? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to read the dissertation, it's live and published on ProQuest as well as Dominican Scholar. If you search the title of the dissertation into Google Scholar, it'll show up. So or my name as well. And it's about 175 pages. It's a bit of a long read, but if you're interested in reading more about it, definitely check it out. Or follow me on Instagram at Coach Sammy Lax. I talk a lot about sports on there, and especially like my university and things like that. So
perfect. I want to thank you so much for visiting the Dose. We appreciate it. I would ask that we not be strangers. I would love to have you back again sometime. Talk hockey, talk whatever. You can come in and talk lacrosse if you want. But I really, really enjoyed our visits. I want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I would love to come back anytime and talk sports in general. It's one of my favorite things to do. So appreciate it.
Hey, next week on the Dose, I actually have another guest lined up that I think you're really going to enjoy. We have a basketball coach coming in that has written a book about youth sports parents kind of overstepping their bounds. Trust me, you will not want to miss it. So make sure that you check out the Dose next week and be sure you let a friend know to do the same. Hey, I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Sammy Vogel-Seidenberg for spending some time with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation and hope you will stay in touch. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening to the Daly Dose every week. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the texts. Thank you for the tweets. Thank you for going over to DailyDoseSports.com and checking out the new things going up there every week. But more than anything, thank you for sharing the show, for sharing the videos, for sharing the articles with someone that you know. We absolutely love it when you do that. Have to say thank you to JSP. Could not do any of this without you. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.